Sophia is here with a message that may feel heavy at first, but it's meant to open your eyes in a powerful way. The energy around you right now is intense, and the moment you hear this, you'll understand why. There's someone who keeps thinking about returning to you, replaying conversations in their mind, imagining what it would be like to face you again. Yet they stop themselves every single time. Why? Because the truth is standing right between you and them, and they know once they come back, it can no longer stay hidden. With the High Priestess, Seven of Swords, and Judgment showing up together, this is not a coincidence. This is a story of secrets, fear, and a truth that's ready to surface whether they want it to or not. You may have already felt this shift, that strange pause in their energy, that silence that feels louder than words. They're not gone because they don't care. They're gone because coming back would expose everything they tried to bury. Sophia wants you to lean in for this, because what's unfolding now is bigger than an apology or a reunion. It's about revelation. It's about the moment when masks fall and the truth speaks for itself. Stay with this message, because what you're about to hear explains exactly why they're so afraid to take that step back toward you. When these three cards come together, the message becomes impossible to ignore. This is not just about fear, distance, or hesitation. This is about truth standing at the edge of being revealed in someone realizing they can no longer outrun it. The energy here shows a person who is deeply aware that returning to you would change everything, not because you would demand answers, but because your presence itself exposes what they tried to hide. This connection has reached a point where silence speaks louder than words, and avoidance has become heavier than honesty. At the core of this situation is intuition versus deception. You sensed something long before it was ever confirmed, even when things felt confusing, even when explanations didn't fully make sense. Your inner voice kept nudging you. You may have doubted yourself at times, wondering if you were overthinking or imagining things. But these cards together confirm that your intuition was reading the energy accurately. There were things unsaid, truths delayed, and emotions mishandled. The reason they're scared to come back is because they know you don't need proof to understand. You feel truth. You recognize it in energy, in tone, in silence. This person didn't just leave physically. They left emotionally without closure. They chose avoidance because it felt safer than vulnerability. Instead of facing difficult conversations, they sidestepped them. Instead of owning their choices, they justified them internally. What they didn't realize is that every truth avoided doesn't disappear, it waits. And now, all those postponed truths are lining up, demanding to be acknowledged at once. Coming back to you would mean standing in front of someone who already sees the full picture. Even if every detail was never spoken aloud, there is a strong sense of inner conflict within them. Part of them wants to return, to clear the air, to finally be honest. Another part is terrified of what that honesty will cost. Not just your reaction, but their self-image. They are scared of seeing themselves clearly through your eyes. You represent a mirror they can't control, and that loss of control is what frightens them most. It's easier to stay away and live with guilt than to come back and face accountability. What's important here is that their fear has very little to do with you being harsh or unforgiving. In fact, the energy shows that you are capable of understanding and compassion. The problem is that understanding doesn't erase truth. You may forgive, but you won't unsee. You may listen, but you won't accept confusion again. And they know that once the truth is spoken, the dynamic can never return to what it once was. That finality is what makes them hesitate. This combination also speaks about timing and awakening. This situation didn't unfold randomly. There was a reason things paused, separated, and went quiet. In that silence, awareness grew on both sides. You became clearer about your worth, your boundaries, and what you will no longer tolerate. They became increasingly aware of their avoidance, their dishonesty, and the emotional consequences of their choices. The fear they feel now is a sign that they are waking up to the impact of what they did. Energetically, the truth is already moving toward the surface. Whether through conversation, realization, or inner acceptance, clarity is inevitable. These cards show that this connection cannot remain unfinished forever. Something must be acknowledged so that both of you can truly move forward together or separately. The universe does not allow lessons like this to remain unresolved. Growth demands truth. For you, this message carries reassurance. You are not losing anything by waiting. You are not missing out by not chasing answers. Everything you need to know is already finding its way to you. You're calm, you're restrained, Your refusal to beg for honesty has shifted the power back into your hands. The truth they fear is not meant to hurt you. It is meant to validate what you always felt deep down. If they do return, it won't be casual. It won't be light. It will be heavy with meaning, because they know this is a moment of reckoning. And if they don't return, that too is an answer. Either way, the truth is no longer something you have to search for. It's already forming, already aligning, already becoming clear within you. This combined message is about liberation. For them, liberation from guilt and pretending. For you, liberation from doubt and unanswered questions. The fear they feel is simply the last barrier before truth steps into the light. And once it does, everything changes. Judgment arrives in this reading like a moment that cannot be delayed any longer. For this topic, this card speaks of awakening, reckoning, and a truth that is ready to be spoken whether they feel prepared or not. Judgment shows that their fear of coming back is not just emotional, it's existential. They know that returning to you would trigger a turning point, a moment where the past must be addressed honestly and the weight of their actions finally acknowledged. This card reveals that deep down, they already know what they did, and they already know it cannot stay buried forever. Judgment tells us that they are standing at a crossroads internally. One path is to stay away and avoid the discomfort, convincing themselves that time will soften the truth. The other path is to come back and face the consequences of their choices, whatever those may be. This card makes it clear that avoiding the truth is no longer working for them. Their conscience is loud now. They replay old moments, hear echoes of conversations they never finished, and feel the pull of unfinished business. Judgment shows that their soul is calling them to account, even if their ego is resisting. This card also speaks about accountability in a very deep way. They're not scared because they think you'll punish them. They're scared because they know you'll see them clearly. Judgment strips away excuses and justifications. It asks one simple question: did you act in alignment with your truth, or did you choose comfort over honesty? And they know the answer. Coming back to you would force them to admit, at least to themselves, that they chose wrong in certain moments. Judgment also reveals something important about you. This is not about revenge or holding the past over their head. This card shows you as someone who has already grown beyond the situation. You've done your inner work. You've reflected, healed, and reached a higher level of understanding. That's exactly why they're afraid. You are no longer the version of you who would accept confusion or half answers. Your clarity acts like a spotlight, and under that light, truth becomes unavoidable. There is also a strong theme of timing here. Judgment appears when the universe decides it's time, not when we're comfortable. Not when we feel ready, but when growth demands it. This person may feel like they're being pushed from within to confront what they avoided. Even if they try to ignore it, signs, memories, and emotional triggers keep pulling them back to you energetically. Judgment tells us this connection is not finished until the truth is acknowledged. Emotionally, this card shows fear mixed with hope. They fear exposure, but they also sense relief on the other side of honesty. Judgment is about release. About finally putting down the burden of secrets and pretending. They know that once the truth is out, something can finally end or transform properly. That's why this card is so powerful. It doesn't promise reconciliation, but it promises resolution. Judgment also reminds you that closure does not always come through conversation. Sometimes it comes to understanding, whether they return to speak their truth or not. This card shows that the situation is moving toward clarity. The truth they fear will surface in some form, and when it does, it will free you from questioning yourself or wondering what really happened. At its core, judgment tells us that this fear they feel is a sign of awakening, not punishment. It's the soul realizing it can no longer hide from itself. You are simply part of that awakening for them, and whatever happens next, this card assures you of one thing: the truth is no longer optional. It is rising, it is calling, and it will be heard. The Seven of Swords reveals the hidden behavior behind their fear, and for this topic, it speaks very clearly. This card shows someone who didn't just walk away casually, but someone who left while carrying secrets, unfinished truths, and choices they hoped would never be questioned. Their fear of coming back is rooted in deception, not always in a dramatic or malicious way, but in subtle avoidance, half answers, and actions that didn't match their words. The Seven of Swords tells us they took the easy way out emotionally, and now the weight of that choice is catching up to them. This person knows they weren't fully honest. They know there are things they said differently than they felt, promises they implied but never intended to keep, or situations they escaped from instead of facing. The Seven of Swords shows someone looking over their shoulder, constantly alert, constantly calculating. They're scared to return because coming back would mean the story they carefully constructed would fall apart. They fear that one wrong question from you, one quiet moment of eye contact, would unravel everything they tried to hide. What's important here is that this card doesn't just talk about lies spoken, but truths withheld. They may justify their actions by telling themselves they were protecting you, protecting the situation, or protecting their own peace. But deep down, they know avoidance was selfish. The Seven of Swords reveals that they underestimated your awareness. They thought distance would erase the past, but instead it magnified it. Silence didn't bury the truth, it sharpened it. This card also speaks to guilt. Even if they never admit it out loud, they replay moments in their head where they could have been honest and chose not to be. They think about how things might have unfolded differently if they had spoken sooner. That guilt is one of the main reasons they hesitate to return. They're afraid you'll see through them instantly. And the truth is, you probably would. The Seven of Swords confirms that you were never meant to be fooled for long. Energetically, this card shows someone torn between desire and fear. They want to come back, but only if they can control the narrative. And that's exactly what they can't do anymore. Too much time has passed. Too much awareness has grown. They sense that if they return now, they won't be able to hide behind excuses or vague explanations. The Seven of Swords tells us they fear exposure more than rejection. Being rejected hurts, but being seen fully terrifies them. There's also a lesson here for you. This card reminds you that not everyone who leaves does so because they don't care. Some leave because staying would require integrity they weren't ready to offer. The Seven of Swords reassures you that whatever happened was not because you lacked something. It happened because they lacked the courage to be honest when it mattered most. Their fear of returning is proof that they know they mishandled the situation. The Seven of Swords also suggests that if they do come back, it may start carefully, indirectly, or with testing the waters. They might reach out casually, avoiding the deeper conversation at first. But this card warns you to pay attention to actions over words. Truth doesn't rush, but it also doesn't hide forever. If they return without accountability, the same pattern will repeat. This card empowers you to trust your instincts and not settle for partial honesty. At its core, the Seven of Swords tells us that the truth is already heavier than the distance between you. They're scared because they know the moment they step back into your space, they can no longer pretend, whether they return or not. This card confirms something important. You are no longer in the dark, and the power they once held by withholding the truth has already slipped away. The High Priestess steps forward quietly in this reading, but her presence is powerful and impossible to ignore. For this topic, she reveals that the fear this person carries is deeply tied to hidden truths, unspoken knowledge, and things that were never meant to stay concealed forever. This card tells us that you already sense more than you realize. Even without proof, even without direct answers, your intuition has been whispering to you. The High Priestess confirms that your inner knowing is accurate. There is information, emotion, and truth beneath the surface. And this person knows that the moment they return, you will feel it immediately. This card speaks of secrets kept not just from you, but from themselves as well. They have been living in a state of inner contradiction, trying to convince themselves that silence is safer than honesty. The High Priestess shows that they are afraid of what you might ask, what you might see in their eyes, and what might rise to the surface if they sit across from you again. It's not just one truth they're hiding. It's layers of half-truths, emotional avoidance, and choices they never fully took responsibility for. Coming back to you would mean standing in front of someone who sees beyond words, and that terrifies them. The High Priestess also reveals something important about your role in this connection. You were never meant to chase the truth. You were meant to attract it. Your calm, your silence, your distance has already been doing the work for you. This card shows that you carry a quiet authority. You don't need to interrogate, accuse, or demand explanations. Your energy alone creates an atmosphere where lies feel uncomfortable and truth feels unavoidable. That's why they hesitate. They know you don't need them to confess for you to understand. You read between the lines naturally. There is also a strong spiritual element here. The High Priestess often appears when a soul contract is involved, when two people are connected through lessons rather than comfort. This person is not scared of you rejecting them. They're scared of being exposed to themselves through you. They know that once they step back into your life, they can no longer pretend they didn't know better. You reflect their own conscience back to them, and that mirror is difficult to face. This card tells us that silence has been a form of protection for them. They believe that by staying away, they can keep the truth dormant. But the High Priestess teaches that truth is never destroyed, only delayed. The longer they wait, the heavier it becomes. Their fear isn't about punishment. It's about accountability. It's about the moment when they realize that you were never naive, never blind, never unaware. You simply chose peace over confrontation. The High Priestess also reassures you. This card doesn't ask you to act or react. It asks you to trust. Trust that what is meant to be revealed will come out at the right time. Trust that you don't need to chase closure. The truth is already leaning toward you. This person may think they're in control by staying away, but energetically, they're not. The truth has its own timing, and it moves quietly, just like the High Priestess herself. Emotionally, this card shows a deep inner conflict within them. They feel drawn to you, yet paralyzed by fear. They want connection, but only if they can rewrite the past or soften the truth. And that's exactly what they cannot do with you. You don't demand perfection, but you do require honesty, even if it's painful. That's why they hesitate. They know once they return, they'll either have to speak the truth or lose you for real. Ultimately, the High Priestess tells us that this situation is unfolding exactly as it should. You are protected, you are guided, and the truth they fear is not meant to harm you, but to free you, whether they return or not. This card promises clarity, and when that clarity arrives, it won't come through chaos or drama. It will arrive as a quiet, undeniable knowing that settles deep within your soul, leaving no room for doubt.